Hey, I'm Ben Ahrens, co-founder of ReOrigin, where we teach you to retrain your brain and reclaim your health. And in this video, we are going to talk about how to train your brain to focus. I'm here with Katie, who's our head coach at ReOrigin, and we are looking forward to this one because, man, in this day and age, it happens to everyone, right? We find that we get distracted, we get overwhelmed. So much of our environment, our technology has sort of evolved to pull our minds in certain ways, and we can feel sometimes a little bit victimized by that, or we can also use this as an opportunity to set strategies and approaches and strengthen our brain's actual ability to focus. The key is we want to start small and build our way up, just like we would build strength in any muscle. So one of the things that happens is when we get distracted, when we feel unfocused. And unfortunately, a lot of the way we interact with our environments on our phone, our media, send us into what's known as the default mode network. So they activate this network in the brain that has, it literally keeps us in scrolling mode. So a good example of like the default mode network, as opposed to what's known as the executive attention network, which is when we're feeling focused, is that imagine that you're on Netflix, but rather than watching a movie or watching a show that you've selected, you're just browsing titles for 2 hours, right? We've all been there. That is very much what the default mode network does. It's constantly monitoring different activities, trying to, or waiting to find what is important to focus on. And then when we have made that selection, when our brain has eventually zeroed in on something, now it's shifted gears into what's known as the executive control or the executive attention network. So a different network in the brain that allows us to actually stay on task and stay focused. What we want to do is learn how to activate or make that gear shift from default mode network to executive attention network. And one of the ways we can do that is by creating a sense of narrow focus around anything. Right? So let's say now, let's say we're on the computer, we're browsing, we're scrolling YouTube, whatever it might be, we're getting distracted. We can actually pick up something in the environment. I've got a cup here, and we can just intentionally take a minute or a few seconds to focus on it, to literally focus our vision on an object right in front of us. By doing that, we have actually changed the brain's function from default mode to executive attention. You can think of executive as like being the boss, right? Being in charge. So now all of a sudden we've like given it that new input, that new direction. And the more we practice throughout the day, making those switches, the stronger that muscle becomes that helps us shift from distraction, from overwhelm into focus and attention. So that's number one, is like getting ourselves into that state. And one thing that can be helpful is you can even set alarms on your phone, right? You can set maybe an alarm once an hour, to just remind you, oh, I'm going to intentionally focus. Now, once we have focused, the next thing we want to do is gradually broaden or expand the amount of time that we can focus. And for this, we talk about in our ReOrigin program something called the science of small wins. We talk about starting really small, completing something, and then celebrating the fact that we did it. So one example might be, let's say I'm getting lost in distraction, but then my little alarm goes off reminding me, oh yes, remember, I'm here I want to focus. So I'm going to look at something that maybe I've already chosen. Maybe you keep an object on your desk, like an interesting looking stone, whatever it might be. You're going to pick that up. You're going to focus on it for, say, 1 minute. And when that minute is up, you can maybe set another alarm. You are going to celebrate the fact that you just focused for 1 minute, right? And it sounds so trivial. This is where we often fall down, is we don't celebrate these tiny little wins that collectively build up to bigger changes in the brain and wins. But when we do that, it actually sends the positive message of confirmation to your brain saying that, yes, actually focusing is rewarding instead of just being distracted. And then so basically the technique is fairly simple. We gradually increase the frequency. So that's to say we increase the number of times that we remind ourselves to refocus. And number two, we gradually increase or turn up the duration. So we go initially from 1 minute to maybe 1.5 minutes. And then the next day or after a week or so of practice, we can try and focus intentionally for 2 minutes, then 3 minutes. So you see where this is going. The important thing here is that it doesn't matter what you focus on.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you focus on your work or you focus on this almond that happens to be here. You could literally focus on anything in your environment. It's helpful. What's important is that you're building the skill and the neurological muscle of focus.
Yeah. I think it's also important just to recognize, as Ben said, it doesn't really matter what you focus on. If you find yourself having a hard time buying into the whole process, right, because it can almost seem a little bit like oversimplified, maybe focus on something that really does bring you a lot of joy and a lot of like good feelings, right? And that could be, again, maybe you're just focusing on a photo of your family that you really love. Maybe if you're at your work desk, you've got a coloring book and some colored pencils next to you, and you choose to pull it over for 60 seconds and you just have that hyper focus on that thing for that minute. So if you're starting out this process and you are having a hard time focusing on an almond or a cup, you can also choose something that really in that moment also rewards you, right? Because we want the reward at the end, the cheering ourselves on and celebrating that win, but maybe we also do something that rewards us in the middle as well. But like Ben said, it really doesn't matter what you focus on as long as you're consciously focused.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. We want to always, whenever possible, set ourselves up for success.
Yes.
Make it easy, right?
Yeah.
There's no downside to making it easier for yourself. And give it a try. Let us know how this works for you. What is something that you can focus on or that you're going to try this with that will give other people who see your comment ideas for what they can focus on? That's going to help you to gradually train your brain to stay in focus.